Okay, we're on the air. This is the OSRA no longer daily Scrum for Tuesday, February 24th, 2015. Here we have, as always lately, Christian, Gabrielle, and myself. And Christian, let's start with you.
Yes, I was working yesterday and today on the OSRA 367 about the validation of the start dates. So the start dates shouldn't be before OSRA establishment was April
Great.
2012. And I, I think that's done. Uh, One thing to mention is that I have to create a helper module in the lib folder. Let me share the screen. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
So, where is it? This one. So I created this not this one, sorry. This one. The validator helper that will contain only this validate method that is used in three places, actually two places and once in my validation that I made here. So this will uh, so now the helper is placed in the lib folder, and it's also used in the model, in the sponsor model, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sponsor model, and I included directly and removed it from the model itself.
Thank you very much.
And you said that to me?
Yes, that code in sponsor has bothered me for a very long time.
It's a method that should be independent.
Yeah, it's not
You tell
sponsor's
error
business
about
to
that.
validate dates. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. So it's a little weird for me to place it in the lib folder because it's still related to the model. But I looked online and looks like this is best practice for helper, model helper.
Yeah, I'm not so sure from what I've seen. It seems that the way people think about lib is that lib is for code that you might consider reusing in a different application or even extracting into a gem. So it's something that is not
Yeah,
tied
exactly.
to your business logic in any way.
Mhm. I agree with
So
you, and that's what I
yeah,
thought.
so yeah, that was actually going to be my next comment, is that I am not sure that um, these validators belong in lib somewhere.
Well, is this validator? I didn't look, but is this validator also used in the importer? Actually, it doesn't.
It validates that it's a validate.
Should
No,
be in the model only, right?
no, I don't think it can be used in the importer, because from the importer the strings come in as dates come in as strings, and so to use this validator, it
Mhm.
would it would have to parse the string to get the date first, and it's not doing that. So I think that's a pretty good sign that it's not used in the importer at all. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm almost
then
positive.
then we should move this into the model somewhere, right? This
I think
helper.
models concerns, something like that. It sounds like the best place for this kind of stuff.
So
What
where
are
in
you?
the model?
There's if we look at the structure, We have app models, and then there's the concerns folder. And there's already the initializer in there, so that's the module that gets mixed in. And I think validators could easily go in this, in models concerns. We could also put it into separate models validators, for example.
Yeah, this validator that I'm doing, I created it in the concerns.
It can be either concerns validators, or it could be just validators under models. I'm perfectly fine with either solution, I suppose.
Well, the concerns, I think they are imported directly by Rails. I don't know if we create a validators folder, we have to import that. I mean, we had to require that
No,
file
I think everything
manually.
under app is automatically processed. So when I created those services, for example, I put them into app services, and I didn't have to do anything to the Rails config. They're automatically seen by
So
Rails.
isn't Rails set by default to import the service, specifically the service folder?
I don't think so, because that folder didn't even exist until I created it.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, you can try it out,
Also,
but
also it should be a problem if maybe some folders will be imported uh, uh, first, and then actually it will be imported after the models are imported. Not sure how that works.
yeah, again, I don't think so. I think it loads the entire tree of the app folder, but I mean, it's fairly easy to test that. Just move that folder around and see if things.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It imports all the tree, but it should be an order how it is imported, right? Or first it needs to start processing everything. Not sure.
Um,
Do you know what I mean?
well, I understand what you mean, but um, I don't think that is something that we need to be concerned about. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I guess I don't know enough about it to give you a specific answer. So let's do a little
Okay,
bit
then
of
I will
research.
try it and we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, what are you going to work on next? Pull request. It's ready for code review now.
Sorry for interrupting. I have one more question.
Sure.
Here is a date not in future validator that is from the active each validator.
Yeah.
What is this?
This is
Active
what
model each
what it
validator.
allows you to do is so if we look at what what's the best way to explain it? It allows you to use essentially the same syntax as native Rails validators use. So instead of referring to it as a method where you say validate,
You put it as a symbol.
you put it, well, you put the method name as a symbol as well. You say validate and then put in a symbol that refers to the method name. But what you can do with this
I know what
kind
you
of a
mean.
validator, yeah, you can say validates date and then comma and then a symbol that points to this validator. So you can basically chain them together. You can say validates birth date, presence true, date not in future true. So it allows you to do it that way. So it becomes essentially just like another
Also,
Rails validator.
so the class is the validator.
Yeah, yeah. You basically
Uh-huh.
use. If you give me a second, I'll find the code that uses it. How it works. I don't know, there must be something in orphan.
Also 6.
Okay, so have a look. This is orphan, the orphan model, line 37. Validates date of birth, presence true, date not in future true. So if you don't have that kind of validator that inherits from each validator, you have to do this instead, what's on line 43. You basically say validate and then you pass a method name.
Yeah.
But if you want to do this kind of validation that is the same style basically as...
I understand. So you practically define a new validator and
Exactly, yeah.
it can be used anywhere, all over the application.
And if you want to
cool.
implement it, Rails guides has a pretty good description. And that's pretty good instructions about on it. So that's how I implemented that one. It's fairly simple to follow. You need to provide all three of those attribute or parameters. And the method needs to be validate each with those three parameters. And then record refers to the object that is being validated, or rather the object, the attribute, and then whatever value it...
the column and the value,
yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, sure. It's a pretty cool thing I've once, but yeah, it's pretty powerful way to extend the built-in validators.
Yeah, because this way I don't have to do this import. Where is it? To import this included validator. Not this one. Sorry, this one. So
Right.
the custom validator that I created in the module.
Yeah.
I could just use validate and say directly.
Yeah, that's true. That's correct.
Cool.
Okay. So I guess you're thinking about fixing that up or making some of these changes then? Okay. All right. So that's next for you. So Gabrielle, let's go to you then.
For my my docs, well, I did the change of the view.
Yeah.
The view and the show functionality for Orphan. And I just add a screenshot. It looks very similar to the A active. Yeah, I put the panels and everything because I think it's better organized. I did the change you comment. I remove I changed some things in the spec test. That's it. Basically, added the panels. That's it. I think if you have other comments or should be ready. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I'll take a look at it again either tonight or tomorrow, and hopefully we can get that merged in pretty soon.
Yeah.
So, what's your plan? The next thing that you're gonna work on?
I don't know. Actually, I was looking for that right now, but I don't know. I would like to do something more. You know, whatever. I actually whatever. I don't have a preference now.
Okay.
I could do anything. I don't.
All
But
right.
let me see. There are there is two new functionalities. I think. Yeah, this is I don't know what one new functionality. I don't know what is this one. What is? Let me. What is this? This is this functionality. Let me copy. Ah, tree navigate.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That
it's
is confusing.
yeah. So it's,
What
that's
is
a
that?
bug. It's a bug. During the
Ah,
client
bug.
during the client meeting on Sunday was in total seven additional tasks that I've added to Jira. This is one of them. 390. It's a bug that needs a fix. There are two other bugs, but I didn't add them to the current sprint. They're currently at the bottom of the backlog. So if you go to Jira and you go to backlog and you scroll all the way down, you will see the other six. Two of them have to do with filters. So the filters that are in the index views, on the sponsor index view and on the orphan index view, the um, the filter for name is missing. So that filter essentially acts as a search box. You just enter. It's not a drop-down filter. It's just a text box. You enter the name, and it does partial matching um, between the name and that text. And for the orphans, they also want a filter for birth year. Um, and one of the things that they thought about is that maybe that filter can actually be a range of dates. So if you want to find orphans who were born between 1980 and 1990, for example, you can do stuff like that. And then the other four things were new features that they're interested in. This first one, OSRA 386, what they want is, maybe it's the easiest for me to demonstrate. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay. So here, for example, this is the sponsors index. And you can see that we have this column for request fulfilled, and it's either yes or no. What they would like is to display, in case the request is not fulfilled, they would like to display, maybe in brackets or just next to it, how many sponsorship this sponsor currently has out of how many sponsorships he or she requested. So, for example, if the sponsor requested 4, but is only currently sponsoring 2 orphans, this would say no, and then 2 out of 4. So they, at a glance, they can tell basically how close that sponsor is to getting all the requested sponsorship, orphans sponsorships. So that would be, I think, a fairly straightforward feature to implement. 387, on the other hand, would be, I think, a fairly complex thing. What they want is that when you go to create a sponsorship, so when you try to create a sponsor to an orphan, currently you can do it just one at a time, because if you, I really shouldn't be doing this. Let's go to testing. Wait for it to boot up. So currently, basically, if you're trying to establish a sponsorship, you just click on the button next to an orphan's name, and that creates a sponsorship between a sponsor and an orphan, and then you need to repeat the whole process again. I can show it to you live. So if we go to, here's a sponsor. If you say link to orphan, you're taken to this screen, and then you can click on this button that says sponsor this orphan. And when you do that, that takes you right back to the sponsor page. Instead, what they would like to do is to be able to select several, and then, so maybe there's a check instead of these individual boxes that you check, and then there's one main button that says sponsor these orphans.
Yeah.
And that creates all these sponsorships at the same time.
Yeah.
So instead of doing one by one. This is something that we have to be very careful about how we implement. Basically, so far, father's date of death and orphan's date of birth have been mandatory fields. But the problem is that because this data is coming from Syria, where there is a civil war going on, very often that information is not available. But what they don't want is to turn these fields into optional fields, because they want to make sure that the person that's entering the information doesn't just skip those fields. Instead, the solution that they propose is that if these dates are not available, you enter NA, and the dates are stored in the database not as datetime format, but as string format. And what happens then is the model looks at that string, and if the string is NA, then it skips validations. But if the string is anything else, then it parses that string into a datetime object and then does the validations on it.
Yeah, I see. So
the problem, the big problem that we have to be very aware of here is data integrity. We're changing a field from being mandatory to being optional. So we want to be absolutely sure that we don't invalidate any of the records now, and especially if in the future we switch back to the original implementation, we still want to make sure that all the records remain valid. So that's a bit of a tricky one. And then something quite easy, when they import the records, currently there is this question about is the father of the child alive or not, and they, at the moment, they're using Arabic words for alive or dead. Instead, they want to just use Y and N, yes and no. And then the bug, the really big bug that I'm trying to clarify with them is this. So at some point in the past, they've decided that they want to not only support orphans, but also kids whose parents are alive, but who might need assistance for some reason. Maybe they're sick or disabled, or the parents are disabled, etc. So now we need to record whether an orphan's father is alive or not. And so far they've been importing records where orphans' fathers have been dead, but last week they tried to import some where the father was alive. And the application refused to accept those records, and it insisted that there has to be a date of death recorded for the father who is still alive. And I've been trying to understand why that was happening, because when we implemented that functionality, of course, there was careful testing, and it seemed that everything was working. And what I think is happening is that we have a translation problem. We treat this field as father alive, but in the spreadsheet, at least according to Google Translation, it actually says, is father dead? So we've been recording it incorrectly. We've been recording no instead of yes, and vice versa. So that is serious. That is very serious. I've sent what I found to the client on Google+. They haven't responded to me. So we can't do anything on this until they respond and verify that this is the case. So this issue for the moment is we cannot work on it, but this will be major priority when we finally understand what we need to do. So sorry, Gabriel, to come back. I'm sorry, I've been talking for a long time. To come back to what you were asking, basically, I think if you cannot find anything in the current active tasks, any of these 6 that were given to us by the client on Sunday, all of these are available if you would like to take one of these.
Yeah, I will try to look at one of those. Yeah, if you are available, I will take some of them. If I have a doubt or something is not clear, I will ask you.
Okay.
Yeah. But I will try to choose one of those quick or fast because
Okay.
yeah, to start working on it quickly. Because I think the other task is already done.
Yeah, Christopher
It's something
really.
basic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Basically, Christopher essentially has implemented everything there. The other issue that we have, we still don't have any clarification from the client. This OSRA 124. And then looking at the other things, I guess I'm not sure what's happening with this. Display active and inactive sponsorships on the sponsor show view. I'll have to check that. This discuss sponsorship create. I think we should wait until we have sponsorships implemented under the HQ namespace. And yeah, after that, I think all the tasks are basically being worked on. So you can take, basically have a look at some of these new ones and see if there's anything that you like there.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. So yeah, for me, I've, like I said, I've been communicating with the client about this issue that I just described. Another thing, they let me know today that the server was down, apparently, it was unavailable. Intermittently since last night. I looked at the at our monitoring software to see what was happening, and it seems that the application was running out of memory, which had happened before, but I thought that problem had been resolved. So by the time I started looking at what was happening with the server, it seemed that it had reset itself and everything was functional normally. And Tarek tried to it was happening during importing orphan records, and he tried re-importing the same spreadsheet and everything worked. So we don't know if this was just a kind of a random failure or if this is something more systematic and there's a memory leak maybe, or just a very poorly implemented code somewhere. So basically they'll keep they'll keep using the application and they'll keep an eye out for similar problems in the future.
Do you know if that file they tried to import was a huge list, maybe?
Yeah, he said, I asked him, he said that it was larger than anything that they've tried to import in the past, but then I didn't quite understand how he did it the second time. I think perhaps he said that he copied cells over to a new spreadsheet and then imported that. So I don't know if he maybe split the file into 2, or if he did something else. But basically, yeah, they got all those orphan records into the system, so everything is functional. Everything's okay, but yeah, we need to keep an eye out for it.
Did you ask
in the past?
Did you ask about the big list? How many records did it have?
No, I didn't ask how many there were. Yeah, we can definitely ask them that.
Because I think it's loading each cell into the memory, right, and then processing each cell. It's not just getting one cell processing, getting another cell processing from the file.
I should have the answer for that because I've done some work on the importer, but I honestly don't remember. I think you might be right. I think it keeps a lot of information in memory. I wonder if we look at how many orphans are now on a production server.
Well, we can test it on the staging, right?
Well, see, I've tested it before, and I know that we can upload at least 300 orphan records at one time. And that's no problem, but that was, of course, me using it in probably on our test servers, so I was using the application at the time, and all the data was, you know, clean, I guess. There weren't too many failures or anything like that. So you can see that we're now up to, on production, they have 485 orphan records in total. So I can't, actually, I wonder if we can go to partners. This would be useful to see what was the last orphan list that was imported, for example. Maybe we can discuss that with the client and see if they find that useful. Because I have no way to check right now. I mean, I can drop into the console, but through the UI, I have no way to check how many orphans were imported in the last import. I don't know which list was the one that was imported last. Okay.
And
yeah.
The server, after it crashed, did it start itself up, or you had to start it manually?
I didn't have to do anything manually. By the time I got there, everything was working fine. But in the past, what I had to do was, whenever it was running out of memory, I had to do a reset on it to basically to get it restarted and to get the memory cleared. But I think if it sits in that state long enough, it will do it by itself. So that's what must have happened.
I see.
And actually, we can have a look.
So this is from Heroku they're starting, because I think there is a gem, I think forever, that once the application crashes, it starts it automatically.
Yeah.
I never tried it, but it looks like many people are using that in production.
Okay, yeah, that might be something for us to look at. Let's have a look. So it's the last half hour. If we go to, let's say, last 6 hours. Well, it doesn't seem that they've done anything basically today, but if we look at the last 24, then we should see those errors. Yeah, you can see the error rate. So there were these failures happening.
Multiple times.
Yeah, it happened multiple times. So this, I mean, the only thing that these red bars mean is that New Relic was trying to ping the application and couldn't. So we don't really know. This doesn't tell us anything about the nature of the error. But if we go to this trail, what was it? I forget the code. There's a particular code when it's out of memory. I would need to go too far back for this. There's a number 14 in it. Is it. No, it's not H14. Yeah, R14 memory quota exceeded. So we'll try to look for that. See. Yeah, you can see that. So this is February 24th, so that's today at 2 a.m. UTC. And it started before midnight.
Oh, it was down a lot of time.
Oh yeah, so even yesterday afternoon they were having this problem. 5 o'clock. Okay.
So 12 hours or even more?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, February 23rd, it started around noon, and it didn't stop until, so about 14 hours. But it was intermittent. You could see from this New Relic graph that it was down, then it was again, New Relic could ping it, but then it went down again. But you can see that it coincides, the errors coincide with activity, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So when they tried to use it, it was failing.
Well, now, how can we figure out what caused this?
I was looking at it earlier. It gets a little bit more complicated once we start going too far back in time, but basically, it was the validate method of the importer. It's
To validate, you said it's a memory error.
well, it's a memory error, so it was running out of memory because
I see. Yeah.
it was the validate method. It's either in the import. I don't actually know. It's not in the importer itself. I think it's in the pending orphan lists controller. Um, that was basically it was taking a long time. So presumably that's what. Okay, here maybe we can look at that. Yeah, you can see that. Yeah. So yeah, pending orphan list controller validate. That method is taking majority of the time. And the last time it was fairly similar. This is when it was the same method that was making the application run out of memory. So
I'm not sure what that method is doing. That validation. Have to look into it.
yeah, well, last time it seemed, yeah, this memory problem last time it was fixed not by refactoring the method, unfortunately, but by changing our web server to passenger from Unicorn. So it wasn't really a, the ideal solution, basically, but method probably needs some attention so that to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Okay, so anyway, other than that, I guess what did I do today? I did a bit of code review, and I took again I took your advice, Christian, with my services and refactored them again so that the flash is now set on a controller, which I think is much more idiomatic. That's what the controller should be doing. That's the business of the controller, is setting the flash. And yeah, the call methods return true or false, and then in case there is a failure, then those service objects instantiate, create an instance variable to which they assign the error message, and that can then be accessed from from the outside by the controllers.
Yeah,
So
I
I
like
think
it more like that.
yeah, I think that was a great suggestion, and
And I think that if we want to make the controller even cleaner from here, I think it's time for the facade pattern to come back.
yeah, well, I think now that we've
Obviously
gotten
on a different task.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. Now that we've gotten into these more complicated, so we tried it first on the partner, but now getting into the sponsor and especially into the orphan, where we're loading multiple associations and passing them to the view, and yeah, all these things become not necessarily more complex, but just bigger. And yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's definitely time to revisit the facades.
yeah. Until the logic is still separated nicely, it's all good.
Yeah, yeah.
So nice work with this.
Yeah, cheers. I really don't know basically what to do with this pull request. It's pretty giant.
Oh, you don't want to merge it?
Well, I would really like to get it reviewed as thoroughly as possible. So I would have loved for Craig or Brian to have a look at it as well and give their opinion too, because I like it, but because it's such a radical change from
Yeah,
the
too
way we've
risky.
done things in the past, I want to make sure that I'm not overlooking something obvious or somebody has a very reasonable objection to something. Um, but of course, if they're unavailable, then it's
Well, the problem is that
just,
if this stays too
I
much
guess
here,
that
it will be hard to rebase.
I've already had to do it once, and
Yeah.
I'd prefer not to do it again.
Mm.
In fact, we have quite a few pull requests that it would be good to get them cleared out. So I think one of us is going to have to take over this story from Brian and finish it because there are still comments there that he hasn't addressed, and it looks like he's far too busy
Oh, sure.
to be able to do it. But it's almost finished. I mean, everything is working. It's obviously it's passing. You can see that it's green. I left a few comments.
Uh, uh,
Um,
if I take this, how should I work directly on his fork on, or how should I do this?
so generally, what I do is um, you add his repo as a remote,
Yes.
and then you fetch it and you check out his branch
Mm-hmm.
and create your own branch, basically
On
just
top of his.
no, just as a copy of his. Um, can show it. I can show it to you right now, actually, if you're interested.
Sure.
Uh, okay, let me share my screen differently then.
As a copy of his branch.
Yeah, at least that's how I've been doing it in the past. I'm not saying that this is the best way. I'm just saying that this is the way I know. Um, so let's do go here. Um, so I already have. You can see I already have his repo as remote.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do is git fetch e264. I guess I really um, and that branch's name is OSRA 342. Okay, so then we can do git call e264 OSRA 342. Is that right? User index pagination. Okay, so you check it out like that,
Mm-hmm.
and if you see in detached head state, you can mess around with this code, and once you switch to another branch, all of that gets erased. But if you want to preserve these changes, you do this git checkout B, and then I typically just give it the same name.
And this will be directly linked to the develop on my local develop.
Yeah, so this will be your branch now.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Right.
342.
I see what you mean.
And after that, if you do some work on it, um, then
Then
push.
like normally, right? I push it to my origin and do a pull request.
Yeah, and we'll close his pull request and reference yours. All his commits that he has made will still be there with his name attached to them. So he doesn't lose any credit for the work that he did, but whatever the last commit that you make will also be there.
But can't I work directly on his pull request? I remember Brian said that this is possible. I'm not sure how.
I'm not sure that I don't think that you can, because the pull request is essentially is on his repo, and you don't have push authorization on his repo.
Yeah, I remember he said it's surprisingly possible just because we are both working the same project.
What's possible is to open a pull request from somebody else's repository.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, so if you go to any one of our repos and you find a branch from which, for example, we haven't created a pull request, you can create a pull request from it.
I see.
Yeah, but as far as I know, I mean, research this by all means, and if you find a different way of doing this, I would love to hear about it. But I think this is, since you don't have access, push access to his repo, I think this is how you have to do it.
Okay.
Okay. So then these service objects, I agree with you. I would like to, if we agree that we're going to merge them, then I would like to do that as soon as possible because it's a big pull request and rebasing it is going to get difficult. And it doesn't look like we're going to get a lot of feedback on it from anybody else, from those guys who have left, or at least temporarily. So maybe there is no point waiting.
You can send a private message to Craig, maybe, and Brian.
Yeah.
Look over this one. I'm sure they have like half an hour to look over it.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good idea. I'll do that. Then the gem update. I guess we're fairly confident in Rails 4.2 at this point, so I think we can merge this.
I didn't look over yet.
Yeah. Well, there is essentially nothing there except for gem updates, and then I had to change a few settings to get rid of deprecation warnings and a few tests.
I remember.
Yeah. A few things failed just because syntax has changed or date format has changed, but
right.
Yeah.
The default date in Rails, right?
Yeah, that's right. They've changed the format, but anyway, that actually I think made me change it to the way that the client has specified instead of relying on Rails default, which is a more solid solution, I think. Anyway. Then these two create and add another sponsor spaces. I think they're fairly straightforward and they can be merged in. But if you guys, either one of you, if you can have a look at basically all of these PRs, if you can take a look at them and let me know if you think they're okay or something needs to be changed, then I would definitely appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, cool. Okay, Kristen, I saw you were helping that new guy for a while in OSRA, but on Slack, but it didn't go anywhere in the end.
I don't know. He said, but that he started the application first time today, so not sure how serious he is. We'll let him do the first step.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's see how committed, if he's committed enough to try to resolve those errors.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting. I Googled that error, and I found absolutely nothing. That root gem, what was it, undefined method height?
Yeah, because I recently reinstalled everything, and I all the apt-get libraries that he installed, I also installed those and nothing more, and everything
Okay.
was fine.
Yeah. Okay,
So
that's weird.
yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's hope he gets it figured out then. And I guess that's it.
We have here Geronimo. Hello.
Sorry. Say it again.
We have a new member, Geronimo.
Oh. Hi, Geronimo. Do you want to introduce yourself? Apparently not. All right.
You're on mute.
You can type in the message if your mic is not working. Okay. All right. No worries. Welcome. We hope you like what you see, and join us on Slack. And our next Scrum will be on Thursday at the same time, 2000 UTC. So please feel free to join again. All right, guys, if there's nothing else for us to talk about, then until Thursday.
Mm-hmm. All good.
All right. Yeah. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.